Should the Rams trade Cooper Kupp when we got week 5 winners and losers? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports, the NFL, for over 10 years. 24/7 Sports, Bleacher Report, Dodgers Nation, Sports Illustrated, now the Rams 4 Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. On today's show, winners and losers from week 5. We've got an update on Cooper Kupp. And can the Rams make the playoffs? That's coming up next. But first, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, Travis, let's get right into it. I think something that feels somewhat optimistic about, despite the 1-4 start, is the fact that reinforcements could be on the way in the form of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Sean McVay was asked about the return of Cooper Kupp, and he said that week 7 is the, quote, ideal target for him to be back on the field. And he said that by no means is that guaranteed, and called week 7 an optimistic target. So I think the question now is, when you look at the start of the season, really should you rush Cooper Kupp back? Because still under contract, I mean, you look at where this team's at, you definitely need him. Jordan Whittington has stepped up, but it's definitely a decision that they're going to have to make.
Yeah, I think that the Raider game, week 7, is important for a variety of different reasons. Whatever minute playoff hopes you may have, obviously, are going to rest on whether or not you can win that game. But I think that the Cooper Kupp component of that is probably the most interesting thing, because, you know, whether he plays or not, we'll see. We'll see whether or not he's ready to go. But I think it matters a great deal on if he does play, what does he look like? And if they do win, by how many, and by what, and what does the game feel like and look like? Because if you just scratch out a victory against a bad Raider team, what does that really mean? Probably not very much, frankly. Now, if you go out there and you look like the team that we were hoping that they looked like at the beginning of the season, and that they're led by their offense and everything kind of is unlocked by the presence of Cooper Kupp, then maybe you're onto something and you make some different decisions. But I really do think that if that is anything other than that's what we're talking about, I don't even know if you will see very much of him, because I think that as unfortunate as this all is, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised if the Rams are out of the Cooper Kupp business before too long, whether it's at the end of this season, whether it's at some point during this season. I think the Matthew Stafford question that was kind of brought up during the offseason about him wanting a new deal, the Rams being a little reluctant to go to a big number for a long period of time. This could be a defining moment for the future of the Rams and arguably their 2 most popular players.
Yeah, I think you look at the rest of Cooper Kupp's career and what's left. I mean, if you can find a way to stay healthy, you could see him in the league for another 4 or 5 seasons. He can still be productive. But the truth is, if Sean McVay is, quote, optimistic and not at 100%, I just don't see the point of rushing him back into this situation, because if you are able to pick up wins and go on a run and find a way to defy the odds and make the playoffs, you can't not have him for a playoff run. So, yeah, I'm just a little reluctant to say, okay, all right, we're getting Kupp back. We're getting Puka back. The boys are back in town. We're going on this big run. I think you still have to be cautious about it, and it feels like that's something that they're going to do. Now, as far as the playoffs, you mentioned it earlier.
Can I stop you right there for a sec, Doug?
Yeah.
Because, look, I hear you, and I'm glad that you're optimistic. They're not thinking about saving him for the playoffs. They're thinking about saving him so they can trade him. They're thinking about keeping him healthy so someone else will take him off their hands so they can get whatever might be coming back, because they can't trade him if he's not healthy. And once he gets healthy, sending him back out there, we've seen what it looks like over the last 3 years. He he has had a really hard time of staying on the field. So if you can get him healthy and get something in return, I would imagine that that's something that they're going to consider. They're not going to the playoffs. They're just not. So I just, if they can find a way to protect these assets, to flip them for some other things, to start thinking about what's coming next. And look, if that 1 in 20 chance comes through, great. Then you make some different chances as you get a little bit different there. But I think that there's probably two different sides of the house right now. There's the Sean McVay side of the house, which is how do we beat the Raiders? How do we find a way to score points? How do we find a way to stop some people? And then there's the business side of the house, which is thinking, what can I get for this, and this? And what can we think about doing moving forward? I think that this is where an organization that has been very together because they're on the same timeline, whether it comes to winning now and, we all know the F them picks era of Les Sneed. I think you're starting to see a little bit of this because of the head coach's job is to get the team ready to win football games today, tomorrow, this week, next week. The general manager and everyone else's job is to win some games now, but let's also not hamstring ourselves moving forward. And I don't know if those two things line up right now.
Yeah, I mean, he would absolutely be a natural fit in the Chiefs system. And if you're the Rams, the best way to jumpstart a rebuild is with draft picks. And if teams are going to view Cooper Kupp in the light of 2021 in any way, shape, or form, and you can maximize the return on him, absolutely, that's something you should strongly consider. Because the truth of the matter is, like you said, odds of making the playoffs at this point, very slim. If you look historically in this league, I'm not saying it can't happen. Anything can happen under a Sean McVay-led team. Matthew Stafford gets rolling. But the truth is, the day that Aaron Donald retired, it had a massive impact on the 2024 season. And ever since then, a lot has gone wrong for this team. Yes, you've been in every game. 3 of the 4 losses are by less than a touchdown. There's things to be optimistic about. But at the end of the day, those are L's in the loss column. But yeah, I mean, as far as trading Cooper Kupp, I think the big question for me is, it's the return. His stock right now is low, right? Because if I'm a GM out there and I'm looking at Cooper Kupp, I'm saying, don't sell me on 2021, right? Because the truth of the matter is,
any general manager that thinks they're getting that guy is not doing his job. What you're thinking of is, can I get this guy through the end of the line? Is it going to be the difference between me going to the Super Bowl or not, going to an AFC or an NFC championship game or not? And what's the cost? Because I really don't think the cost would be all that high. I mean, we've seen guys move around there. We're not talking about Devontae Adams at this point. You're talking about somebody who hasn't been healthy in 3 seasons. You're talking about somebody who's really struggled to stay on the field. So the return is not going to be massive. The question for the Rams is, can you get out from underneath the money? Can you get something in return for him? And is the something good enough for the other guy to say, you know what? I got a chance to win the Super Bowl right now. Can he help me right now? Yeah, maybe. I think that's what you're looking for. The return on him. Now, the return on other people, particularly quarterbacks, might be a little different. But the Kupp thing, he's on the wrong side of 30. He's been banged up 3 years in a row, and nobody cares what he did in 2021. That's ancient history.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. But coming up next, we're going to do some winners and losers, maybe some more Cooper Kupp trade talk. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Let's talk about Prize Picks, D-Mac, right? Prize Picks takes what's already a great time, NFL football, Major League Baseball playoffs, and makes it even more fun. Because at Prize Picks, all you have to do is pick more or pick less. It really is that easy. And right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. So get your phone out, put the Prize Picks app on your phone, and start having all sorts of fun. How about this? Justin Jefferson, more than 83.5 receiving yards. I like more. Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 267.5 passing yards. Believe it or not, I like a little bit less than that. This is what Prize Picks is. You pick more, you pick less. It is that easy. And when you download the app today and you use the code LOCKEDONNFL, you're going to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, right? You don't even have to win that first bet to get the $50. It is guaranteed. So put that app on your phone, use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening. Doesn't matter what your Rams record is, you're always listening, you're always watching. We appreciate that. And you can join the Everyday Listeners Club too, because when the Rams win their next Super Bowl, you can say, hey, I was down with this team when they were in their lowest part in the 2024 season. So definitely join the Everyday Listeners Club too. Now, Travis, here in a second segment, we're doing some winners and losers, but kind of going back to the Cooper Kupp talk. I mean, just looking at what his salary is and what he's owed. I mean, you're looking at a guy still owed $15 million for the rest of the season. So you're basically looking at prorated around $1 million per game, right? Something in that line. So when you look at his contract, when you look at his injury history, when you look at his current production, when you look at the fact he's going to be a rental, you're probably going to be looking at realistically a 4th or 5th round pick for Cooper Kupp at best. So I just want to warn Rams fans, if you get the Shefty bomb, if you get any tweet, don't be expecting high draft capital. The way you have to view this, if you're a Rams fan, is saying, oh, the youth movement is on and popping, and it's about developing Puka Nacua when he comes back to another level. It's about developing Jordan Whittington. It's about trying to fast track a rebuild, and hopefully you, with the player acquisition, the development, you're in a better spot earlier than later.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, Cooper Kupp has been one of the great Rams of this LA Rams 2.0 since they've come back. He's been, arguably the guy. Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, maybe one or two others that we could throw in there, but Cooper Kupp is right near the top of the list. He has been a terrific Ram. And look, I hope he stays, and I hope he gets healthy, and I hope he plays great, but I also have been doing this for a long enough time to know that our favorite guys sometimes end up on other teams. That's just the way that pro sports goes. And it usually goes right about this point in their career. And I think you make a very good point that don't let your emotions get in the way of what may be coming back, because the reality is he has not been healthy for a long time, and he's on the wrong side of 30 years old. The way that he plays, he's an incredibly physical player. He's an incredibly tough player. And that's not getting you, first, second round draft picks, probably not even a 3rd round draft pick. That's going to get you something, like you said, 4th, 5th round. And look, the good news is Rams have done pretty well in the 4th and 5th round. They found a lot of good players down there. So that's something of value, to be sure.
And a lot of fans don't ever accept this, right? But let's mention this. Sometimes the player in the twilight of their prime, they want to be traded to a contender.
Sure.
A shot of making a Super Bowl run as well. So look, there's a world where Cooper Kupp can communicate his desire to go to another team. Yeah.
I mean, look, this is how many guys start with one team and end with the same team and never go anywhere? None. They're very. Joe Montana played for multiple teams. Tom Brady played for multiple teams. Randy Moss, Jerry Rice played for multiple teams. Reggie White. I understand that there's the Aaron Donalds of the world, right? There are guys that do stay, but it's very, very rare. Guys move, and it's just the guy that won us a Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford. This is his 2nd team. I don't know if it'll be his last team or not, but guys move. It's the way of pro sports, and you get attached to him, and it sucks to see him go, but that's the way it goes.
And we do pride ourselves on being the Keep It 100 Rams podcast out there. And as you mentioned, going back to 1970, 253 teams have opened the season 1-4. 15 of those teams made the playoffs, with the last being the Washington football team in 2020. And that was the first year they expanded the playoffs to 14 teams. So you're basically looking at 5.9% of teams in NFL history have made the playoffs after a 1-4 start. And we haven't seen one make it since the schedule was increased to 17 games in 2021. So you're definitely on the wrong side of the odds. And from that standpoint, and look, I just can't believe that I woke up after one of the worst Dodgers losses ever, and it's 7 a.m. I'm talking about trading my favorite Rams player, Cooper Kupp. Okay. I am, as they say, down bad, Travis. All right. So let's pick it up with some winners and losers from week 5. And first winner, I'm going Kobi Turner. Kobi Turner is someone who continues to develop. And the big question heading into this season was how would that development progress without Aaron Donald? And he's been playing well all season. And Sunday, he had 2 sacks. He forced a fumble. He was in the Packers backfield all day, did a really nice job pressuring Jordan Love all afternoon. And he certainly looks like they found a perennial Pro Bowler and someone who's going to be an anchor on the defensive line for years to come.
Yeah, he's been great. I think that the answer of is he a function of playing next to Aaron Donald, or is he a really good player? I think we got the answer we were hoping for. He's a really good player. And you saw it on Sunday against the Packers. He's going to continue to need to get better. He's going to continue to need to work. And then instead of having Aaron Donald, you're going to have Braden Fisk. And hopefully Bobby Brown starts to develop. But you got those two guys on the edge, and Young and Verse, that are going to allow some attention to be focused on the outside as opposed to necessarily right in the middle of that line. So I agree with you. I thought Kobi Turner did a really good job. These are the players that are going to be the foundation for the next version of the. Look, I don't mean to be too pessimistic. Maybe that's this year. Maybe stuff comes together really quickly and everything kind of solidifies at the right moment. It's certainly possible, unlikely, but possible. But you're going to need contributions from guys like Kobi Turner the way that you did on Sunday. But it's going to have to be more than just him. He certainly is a good start, but that's definitely one of the players that you're going to be building around.
There's no doubt about it. And a player that you're not going to be building around is Troy Reeder. He's our first loser, horns down of the Week 5 loss. And the thing about Troy Reeder is you're going up against a run-heavy team. He didn't have much of an impact at all. He had 5 tackles. 4 of those were on assists. He left Tucker Kraft wide open on that 66-yard touchdown. He was hitting all the wrong holes with Josh Jacob running the football. And I said it on Monday's show. I think this is a roster situation at the linebacker position. Of course, we talked a lot about the trade, Ernest Jones going to the Titans, and just how much has that impacted the early lack of success on the defensive side of the ball. I think at this point, the answer is pretty evident that it had a big impact. But yeah, Troy Reeder definitely on the loser side for Week 5.
The Rams got caught when they traded Ernest Jones. And it's sometimes you make a move and it's like, you know what, we got it exactly right. It didn't cost us anything, and we just keep moving along. And the Rams have gotten through with that position, maybe not being a point of emphasis for them for a very long time. We've seen a bunch of guys cycle through at that position. And it really has never been a position of emphasis for the Rams. Ernest Jones wanted to get paid. The Rams were not willing to pay the amount that he wanted, and they moved on from him. And I think you're starting to see the results. Troy Reeder has struggled. Christian Roseboom has struggled. This has not been a spot where the Rams have been able to kind of plug that hole in an equitable way. I don't know if they have that player on the roster right now. Maybe, again, we'll see what happens with the Raiders and beyond. And maybe Omar Spates gets a chance to kind of step in there and fill that void and see what you got there. But again, they got caught. This is one of those moves. I like the Rams, the way that they've operated their roster. They don't do contract holdouts. They don't do disputes. They don't do noisy. So they thought that might get noisy. They moved on from it. And more often than not, it's worked out for them. This one has not.
Totally. It really hasn't. And you look at the offensive side of the ball, though, somebody to feel good about, Jordan Whittington. Yeah. 10 targets, 89 yards. He had a 31-yard long. And I think the best thing about him is he just feels like you said, you go into a lab and you try to build a Rams receiver. Yeah. He's that prototypical Rams receiver where you catch the football, goes upfield, gets yards after catch. He's tough, strong hands. And I think there's no doubt about that. Even when Puka Nacua returns and Cooper Kupp returns, that he's someone that should have a role in this offense moving forward no matter what.
Yeah, I think you said it really well. This guy looks like a Los Angeles Rams wide receiver in the mold of the guys that we've seen thrive under Sean McVay. Now, all the things you said, he's big, he's got strong hands, he's a precise route, all of this stuff. But what the guys that have really done well, Puka, Kupp, even OBJ, go back to like Robert Woods and these guys. All of these guys that have really begun, they block in the run game. They're physically tough wide receivers that you can use them almost in certain situations like tight ends. You can really use them in the run game a great deal, and Whittington falls right into that category as well. I think this is one of the reasons that a player like like Tutu has struggled a little bit. It's just because he's not a big guy. You can't really use him like that. Demarcus Robinson, you can't really use him like that. So what the Rams like to do, they've been limited a little bit in the type of wide receiver they have. Whittington certainly does fit that role, and if Sean McVay is going to continue to play the way that he has and has brought them so much success, you're going to need big physical wide receivers, and Whittington is absolutely that guy. I'm very high on him.
No doubt about it. And coming up next, Blake Corum, Matthew Stafford. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's talk about FanDuel, D-Mac, right? NFL fans, you know this. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel because America's number one sportsbook is FanDuel. You knew that already. You've heard me say that a million times along the way. So when you're watching your game and you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you're thinking, you know what, I wonder if this is going to happen next, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and really so much more on the same page where you place your bet. So you're thinking, I've seen this before. I want to get down on this. That's where you go to FanDuel. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's $200 in bonus bets. That is guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. Let me say that again. That is an unbelievable deal. $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. So get out your phone, put the FanDuel app on your phone, go to FanDuel.com and get started. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You're not going to beat that. Also, let's talk about our sponsor, Hillsdale College, offering more than 40, that's right, 40 free free online courses, which include all sorts of great things that kind of, make you that well-rounded person, know a lot about a lot of different things. Constitution 101, the meaning and the history of the Constitution. How often do you hear something like, well, in the Constitution, you're like, is that right? Well, now you'll know. Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics. You want to know why things are the way they are? How about free market economics? The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. You want to know how it falls? You want to know how it rises? There you go. And a brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. So go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked-on to register. hillsdale.edu/locked-on.
All I got to say, Travis, I'm taking Hillsdale -7.5 over UCLA right now. I'm just saying right now, that is who I got in that one.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I will be at the Rose Bowl on Saturday evening watching the Bruins and
what
the Gophers.
You do?
So if anybody is on their TV, I'll be the guy in the stands.
Oh, yeah. That's you? Okay, nice.
That's me.
What did you do, man? I mean, did you piss someone off?
I made a commitment to something a long time ago. Thought it would be a good idea. And little did I know that they were going to schedule the game at 10:30 at night.
Enjoy the San Gabriels. The uniforms are still, I think, one of the best in college football. I mean, the UCLA blue is so beautiful.
I made a commitment, and now I can't get out of it.
Hey, enjoy that, man. But here in our third segment, some more winners and losers. And I think for one of the biggest reasons why the Rams didn't win was you didn't get a great game from Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford ended with a 54.4 PFF grade. He did not have any big-time throws. He had a couple turnover-worthy plays. He had the big interception to Xavier, and I think that really changed the game because, I mean, throwing a double coverage, intended for Tutu Atwell, turns into points. Also took 3 sacks in this game. The accuracy just was not there. Was not a great Matthew Stafford game. And it's unfortunate for him because, he's put in a tough spot with the defense and the offensive line. He really has to be perfect, but he was far from that on Sunday.
Yeah, look, I mean, I am a Matthew Stafford fan. I've been accused of whitewashing when he doesn't play well, and I think that he is still one of the best 10 quarterbacks in this league, and 10 might be disrespectful. It might be in 7 or 8. He might be on a very short list of best in the business. He's terrific. He was bad on Sunday. I mean, he had a bad game. It happens. And unfortunately, he had a bad game on an afternoon where they had a chance to win, where they needed to win. And he certainly didn't help that cause. Now, if I'm going to defend him for a second, I'll use the same analogy I've used before on my radio show and other places. If you think of Matthew Stafford as a chef and he served you what he served you on Sunday, you're like, this isn't very good. It's like, okay, what did he have in his pantry to cook with? Not a lot. I don't know if there's a lot of recipes that are coming out of that kitchen with those ingredients that you're dying to eat. There might be something that could be a little bit better than they did, but the guys that he's throwing the ball to are simply not good enough. They're just not. And Kyren Williams was really good. Blake Corum, I know you mentioned a second ago, was pretty good in relatively limited action. I know that we're both fans of Whittington, but Colby Parkinson, not good. Demarcus Robinson, even though he got in the end zone, not particularly good. Tutu, I get that he'll make a play here and there, but not a down in and down out wide receiver. And look, Matthew Stafford was bad. I don't mean to defend him and blame everyone else. He did not play well, but that's, like you said, you're basically asking him to throw a 1 or 2 hit shutout every time to try to win a game. And this was a game where he went out and got knocked around a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, the interception, Xavier McKinney, that just was very uncharacteristic of Stafford. You're a bad overthrow and just not stepping into it. And you're right. There is a little bit of, okay, he's going to war with butter knives type of thing right now. And you mentioned Kobi Parkinson. We just do a double horns down right there, because I think what's disappointing about Parkinson is dude's 6'7". Dude's a big target. And he caught just 7 of his 13 targets at 52 yards. The long was 9. And he just does not move the needle. Just good things aren't happening when they push the ball towards Kobi Parkinson. And I think that it's fair to say at this point, a lot of these offseason acquisitions that were big questions, okay, would this guy be a positive or a negative? Would he realize his potential? Would he be a successful reclamation project? Well, Trey White, we know the answer there. And then Kobi Parkinson, it's just been a lot of very mediocre tight end play.
Yeah, Jonah Jackson, too. Throw him in there. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. That's another one that they spent some more. Yeah, no, look, not to be a smart aleck about the whole thing, but I think you're starting to see why the Seahawks never threw him the ball. I think you're starting to see why he was used more as a blocking tight end than anything else, that he's been given ample opportunity to try to impact this game, and it really has not happened. I think there's also, a little bit of, be happy with what you have when you have it. Tyler Higbee, pretty good NFL tight end when you start looking about some of these other things. Those other guys, Davis Allen and some others, haven't really stepped into that void the way that we're hoping to. But Parkinson got, like you mentioned, targeted at 13 times, I think it is. I'm going by memory here. And none of them were particularly impactful. It just felt like they were never able to get on the same page. That connection that Kupp has, that connection that Puka is able to develop really quickly, that connection that it feels like Whittington is starting to develop, just really has not been there with Parkinson.
For sure. I do want to end on a positive here, and that's Blake Corum.
He's good.
20 yards on his first 2 carries, and he definitely is someone that you could see the upside potential. The way he just slithers and gets into between tackles, it's this bowling ball style of rushing. And I want to see more of him moving forward. Kyron Williams is that guy, but I think at this point of the season, I want to see a significantly increased role for Blake Corum, because I think that that's what it's about at this point, is seeing what you have for next year. At this point, developing. Hopefully you catch lightning in a bottle, but development has to be front of mind for this team. And Blake Corum is certainly someone that you want to see at this level get more touches.
He looked good. It was the first time we've seen him in a non-special teams role that wasn't a blowout. Like, we've seen him a little bit where games kind of got out of hand and he got in towards the end, but these were real carries in the middle of a game that was still very close, and he had a positive impact. I'm with you. I still think that maybe the reason he's out there is he's not quite where he needs to be on pass pro, that Sean McVay's offenses can be fairly complicated. And if you miss something and number 9 takes a hit, well, that's that. There's not much you can do after that. But I think we're getting to that point where development is probably a big part of what they're doing, and Corum is going to be a part of that. And I thought he looked terrific. I'm excited to see more.
For sure. And before I get out of here, Travis, how long have you owned that hat? Because there's 2 different kind of guys. There's guys like me who I get the New Era one, flat bill it a little bit, and as soon as there's one mark on that thing, I'm back and I get another one. You're giving me like early 2000s Darren Dreifort vibes. Yes, Darren Dreifort just got dropped us on the show, but I like it though. It works on you though. You kill it with that.
So let me here. I don't know if you can hear this, but I'm going to do this. Okay, that's how crusty and old this thing is. That this is a perfectly formed, old school, dented, stained cap that's been around the block a lot. But I'm hoping that it turns the luck around somehow, some way. So far, it hasn't done the trick. I have a crispier, newer one, but I'm hoping to throw it back and get some good old school vibes.
No, we need the vibes tonight. Are the Dodgers going to take Game 4?
Look, man. Bueller was great last night, and they got the pitching performance they needed. They got the bullpen performance they needed. They got the big hit that they never got. They got Mookie going, and they still lost.
1 for 21 after the Teoscar slam. I in my nightmare, I could just see Rojas flip the ball. Just flip the ball to Gavin Lux. Flip the ball to Gavin Lux.
Absolutely. And you knew that someone was going to barrel one in that inning. You can't ask a guy to get 5-6 outs in an inning without somebody hitting one on the screws. And Tatis is the hottest guy in the world right now, and it was him. But look, baseball's weird. Baseball's weird. Keep that in mind and play the
Dodgers in 5. Dodgers in 5. But that's going to do for this episode of Locked On Dodgers and Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.